It is not our weapons or our technology that make us free. It is the matchless spirit, skill, and devotion of our men and women in uniform. Most of us are not directly touched by war. As a consequence, we may not always fully grasp the depths of sacrifice. The profound costs that are paid in our name, our troops and their families understand this all too well. As we pay tribute to our veterans with ceremonies on this day, we must never forget the sacrifices they and their family have made out of the deepest sense of service and love of our country. We are most grateful to introduce one such veteran. Our speaker today, Mrs. Heinbuch, who has joined our 5th grade staff this year as a long-term sub. Mrs. Heinbuch is married to Andy Heinbuch and has 2 children, Callie, aged 2, and Lane, aged 4 months. Mrs. Heinbuch served in the Army National Guard from 2004 to August of 2013 and was deployed to Iraq from August of 2006 to August of 2007. We are privileged today to hear her story. We also take a minute to be thankful for our great nation and all the freedoms that she gives us. Most of you know me here as Mrs. Heinbuch, the grade teacher, but I'm known to many as former staff sergeant Colleen Heinbuch. I always knew that the military would be a part of my life and who I wanted to be. For generations, I have family members that served in the military, and I always knew that I would carry on that tradition and do the same. So today I not only stand before you as a teacher, but as a veteran of Operation Iraq. I feel so honored and humbled along with these men and women here today to be part of a group that has helped to keep our country free. My journey began at age 17 during my junior year in high school, and I signed my name on a contract that changed my life forever. I joined the Wisconsin Army National Guard. 3 days after summer vacation started after my junior year, I packed up my bags and headed to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. Up until that point, it was the toughest 3 months of my life that they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Or so they say. After returning from basic training, I came back and did my senior year of high school at Baldwin Woodville. And after graduation, I got ready for 6 months of job training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. My Army job is a technical engineer, which means that I do surveys and designs for roads, buildings, city planning, civil engineer type things. So that was 6 months, and after returning home from that, I started looking at colleges, getting ready to get back to normal life as a civilian for a while, doing my 1 weekend a month. But an opportunity soon presented itself, and I decided to take it. I volunteered to deploy to Iraq with the 105th Engineer Group out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that was for sure a decision that would change my life forever. I remember the day that I landed in Iraq just like it was yesterday. I always describe the feeling of getting off that plane. If you were to take a really hot hairdryer and put it in your face, that's kind of what it felt like. And I remember thinking, this must be coming off the engines of the plane, but it wasn't. It was just what I would have to deal with for the next year. It was just the climate of Iraq. Up here, I have a picture that I took after the first steps. after landing in Iraq. This is my unit coming off the plane. We rode on a C-130 from Kuwait, where we landed. Rode on a C-130 up to get to Iraq. So this is one of my first pictures that I took in country. You can kind of see on the side are the tents that we stayed in, just great big long rows of tents with probably 100 people in each one. That's where we stayed for our in-processing for the first probably 10 days. And up here I decided to show a picture of how beautiful it could be at times, even though it didn't always seem that way. There was some pretty beautiful scenery over there as well. My new home for the year was located at Contingency Operating Base Spiker, or Cobb Spiker we called it. It was located in northwest Iraq, just outside the city of Tikrit. After the jet lag and the climate change finally wore off, I started getting used to my new life. We lived in something called a CHU. We called it was a container housing unit. It was basically a big metal shipping container, and it had a window cut in it. That didn't do much for us because it had to be boarded up for safety reasons anyway. So that's where we lived for the year, and they weren't anything fancy, but they worked pretty well. And they even had an air conditioner that would bring it down to about 85 degrees if you were lucky. This here is a picture after just a couple weeks after we got there. Sand in your teeth and the smell of something burning, which you can see in the background, are something that there was definitely no shortage of over there. So something we had to get used to. This is a picture of me in there on a truck with a bunch of my team members that I worked with throughout the year. And in the background, I'm not sure if you can see it, but the blue and white shipping containers were our houses, you could call them. While I was in Iraq, I actually worked 2 jobs. My first and the one that I did the most was a technical engineer that I talked about a little bit, doing surveys and plans for buildings and roads for better living conditions and update facilities both for military construction and for Iraqi civilians. One of the biggest jobs I got to work on was turning an Iraqi indoor marketplace where vendors would come and sell their things. We turned it into a hospital. So it was really great to see some of the good work that we were doing over there. The best part about being an engineer is that all of the units wanted you to come there because bringing in engineers meant that their living conditions would get better and their facilities would be improved. So that means that they want to get you there quick. So I usually got to ride in style when I needed to get somewhere for a project. This is a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter that you may have seen flying. I know some fly from Fort Snelling. They sometimes are around here. But this is what I usually got to ride in when I needed to go to a project site. This is a picture of me on a helicopter. If there was only a few passengers, you were lucky because you got to wear the headphones and listen to what the pilots were saying. But sometimes they weren't very nice and they would try to freak you out a little bit and tell you that there was trouble and there really wasn't. This picture is actually taken from another project that I was at in the Sinjar mountain range, way up in northwest Iraq. It was a retrans site, we called it, because all of our radio towers were up there. And it was a tiny, tiny little outpost. While I was there on the project, I was the only woman soldier there, so I slept in the kitchen of their dining hall because they didn't have anywhere else for me to sleep. But that was one of my most memorable projects because the scenery from up there was beautiful. This is also from that same project, and actually I'm standing on the top of the tallest mountain in northwest Iraq, looking down on, you can't see the border up there, but that's looking down on the border of Syria and Turkey. So while standing in Iraq, I can see both other countries from right there. My other job that I did while I was in Iraq was drive a truck for our unit security team. When I say truck, I mean an up-armored Humvee, so that was pretty cool. This is a picture of the team that I drove with. You can see our trucks with the turrets mounted up there in the background, and everybody lined up getting ready for a mission. There's another picture. You can kind of see the trucks and everybody doing their preventative maintenance and their checks before we headed out. And here you can kind of see some of the equipment that we had to wear. It was not an easy task to get ready to go on a mission. We had heavy metal
plates to wear for safety and helmets and night vision, goggles, lots of weight to carry as you sat in the truck. The team that I drove with was 1 in a million. They were first class, and there was no one in the world that I would have felt safer with. We had a great time, but when it came time to work, there were no jokes. Driving on Iraqi roads was a dangerous mission that nobody took lightly. Roadside bombs, Al-Qaeda ambushes, vehicle breakdowns were all hazards that threatened anybody who needed to cross the road, civilians included. And there's no feeling in the world like the one where you fear for your life. These were the times that the reality of war would really set in. But with the work of a team and our precision road clearance teams that went and roamed the roads looking for hazards before we got there made us all safe. Now, after all the serious business, every once in a while we would try to squeeze in a little fun and games when we could to lighten it up. Being away from family was really tough, so we needed to do it when we could. But we were all in the same boat. And we formed friendships over there that could be broken by nothing. We became brothers and sisters, and these are friendships that I will never forget. We became protectors of one another and always had each other's backs. And we had some really great times together. We put together a softball team from some makeshift equipment that our families would send from overseas. We all had our gloves sent over, and we put together a team, and we would always be running around trying to round up some other units that would like to play us in a game of softball. We had plenty of sand for a volleyball court that we'd usually get together on Sundays if everybody was back on post. We would get together and play volleyball every once in a while. And these are a couple of my other buddies that were definitely a good time to have. Zeke is on one side and the other one is Schaefer, and I never even knew his first name. We just called him Schaefer. The friendships and bonds that I formed over there are ones that I will never forget. Being away from family was one thing that never got easier, but together we all hung in there and made it through. And as a soldier, you do whatever you have to do to get by. It's part of the job, but it definitely did not make it easy. It didn't make it easy for soldiers to miss birthdays, holidays, first steps of their children, first days of kindergarten, first days of school, or just the comforts of knowing that you are safe. Being a soldier is about sacrifice, and it's about giving up those things that are so important because you believe in the freedoms of your country. It's about serving your country and working as a team for a greater good. Soldiers sacrifice their time, their safety, their time with their families, and their peace of mind to fight for their country. But for many veterans, their service does not end when their military contract expires. They continue to live a life of service and gratitude for those who will serve after them. One of the things I remember most is the first steps when I got off the plane when I came home from Iraq. We landed in New Jersey, and I remember the cool air for the first time, the cool humid air that we had not been afforded overseas. I remember the smell of grass for the first time in over a year. And I remember most was who was there to greet us. We were in New Jersey, so our families weren't able to be there, but who greeted us was a group of local VFW, a group of veterans. It was 3 in the morning on a Saturday. They didn't have to be there. They were paid to be there, and they weren't obligated to be there. But a group of veterans who had no idea who we were got themselves up at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning to come and give us the welcome home that they thought we deserved. And after that, they brought us back on post and they served us a pancake breakfast that we had not been expecting. And so I think that speaks a lot and very much to these men and women here today that military isn't done when your contract expires. It becomes a lifestyle that you live to serve your country. So on this Veterans Day, and any day for that matter, you can all do your part as well. You can do your part by saying thank you to a veteran. You can do your part by being proud to be an American. And you can do your part by appreciating the sacrifices that were made by your country's veterans in order for it to remain free. Please remember this as you say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. When you see the American flag flying high, And as you hear the national anthem before kickoff every Sunday and you're watching your favorite football team, our country is a free one because of the veterans who stand behind it. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm very